Good morning. My name is John, and welcome to our daily reflection this Easter Monday. Now, since finishing full-time work a year or two ago, and obviously before this pandemic, I used to enjoy sitting in a coffee shop watching people hurrying to and from somewhere. A reflection, I suppose, of the pace of life today. Always reminds me of the words of Jesus, who tells us that worrying won't add a single hour to our life. And as we make our way through life, we can also develop some strange ideas as we go, such as seeing things we don't believe, believing things we can't see. A good example of this is Easter. Yesterday, Easter Sunday. Now, I believe the resurrection happened, although the very idea of such a thing happening is regarded by many today as an offence to modern intelligence. To others, something of an embarrassment to our Christian faith, due mainly to our inability to fully explain or answer the how and why the tomb was empty. Today's set reading is from Mark chapter 16, which says, Saturday evening, when the Sabbath ended, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome went out and purchased burial spices so they could anoint Jesus' body. Very early Sunday morning, and just at sunrise, they went to the tomb. On the way, they were asking each other, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" But as they arrived, they looked up and saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled aside. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a white robe sitting on the right side. The women obviously were shocked, but the angel said, "Don't be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead. Look, this is where they laid his body. Now go and tell his disciples, including Peter, that Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there, just as he told you before he died." The women fled from the tomb, trembling and bewildered. They said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened. This is the word of the Lord. Now, although we have only the gospel accounts that Jesus was risen from the grave, accounts that many today dismissed as biased, but that's just a standard knee-jerk response. But because of our belief, we tend to be lumped together with those who believe in a flat earth, the tooth fairy, or Santa Claus. The main objection to the resurrection is simple. Resurrections don't just happen. But that's exactly the point. Resurrections don't just happen. If they did, then the resurrection of Jesus would be no big deal. The word of the resurrection wasn't brought by politicians or rulers serving their own self-interest, but through ordinary people like you and me. At that time, it was those whose word counted for nothing. Women, the lowest rung of the ladder of society at that time. Here are the words of the respected Jewish priest, scholar and historian, Josephus, who wrote, "Do not let the testimony of women be admitted, since it is probable they may not speak the truth, either out of hope of gain or fear of punishment." Harsh words indeed. But after all, International Women's Day wasn't yet a big thing in first century Palestine. However, into the resurrection story steps one of the most maligned figures in the entire Bible. Mary Magdalene has an air of mystery that has gripped the imagination of many, both those who believe the Bible and those who don't. The whole history of Western civilization, it seems, has a view, one way or the other, into the person of Mary Magdalene. So who was she? From the New Testament, we can conclude that Mary came from Magdala, a village on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. When the disciples abandoned Jesus at the hour of danger, Mary Magdalene was one of the women who stayed with him at both the crucifixion and the burial. Today, her image has been reinvented, from prostitute to prophet, from mystic to celibate nun, to passive feminist icon, to the biblical matriarch of divinity's secret dynasty, and many more wildly varying descriptions have helped shape the story of the woman who was a disciple of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus, according to his teaching, and within his circle, women were treated fully as equal. By the time the Gospels themselves were written and redacted several decades after Jesus, the emphasis and authority of the 12, who were all male. This all-male composition has been used to exclude women from ordination for many years. But in the books of the New Testament, the argument among Christians over the place of women in the community is implicit. I want to end this reflection with a story of two football players. They were talking one day, and John said, "Do you think they play football in heaven?" "I don't know," said George, "but if I get there before you, I'll try and come back and let you know." The very next week, George died suddenly. A few days later, John was out walking by himself and he heard a voice call his name. He looked around, but no one was there. The voice called his name again. "Is that you, George?" he whispered. "Yes, it's me," said the voice. "Well, do they play football up there?" The voice answered, "John, I've got some good news and some bad news about that. The good news is yes, they play football up here all the time. The bad news, they've got you down to play centre forward next week." But that's the way life is. It will happen to all of us. There's nothing we can do. Just like the saying is, in this world, nothing is more certain but death and taxes. But when we remember we have the resurrected Jesus walking alongside us, somehow things can appear less threatening. So as we stand with Mary Magdalene today, listen as he calls our name and remember his words, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And to finish with a prayer. Lord, death could not hold you, and because of you, the resurrection, we too can live. Thank you that the grave is only a journey into the presence of God. You have removed the sting of death and empowered this thing called life. Now I will live in your presence forever. Amen. Now, whatever you do today, this week, be careful, keep safe, and keep smiling. Bye for now.